Property is theft is a quote attributed to Joseph Proudhon, an eminent figure in the history of socialism, along with Karl Marx. However, what is forgotten is that Proudhon was above all a liberal humanist who was concerned with freedom on an individual scale as a protection against the power of the state. Moreover, he would later come to recognize the necessity of private property to ensure individual freedom, and I quote, "Property is the greatest revolutionary force which exists, and that can oppose power." The memory of history remains selective, because the least we can say is that Proudhon's thoughts evolved during his life. At the moment, the same thing is happening with money creation, between central banks printing like crazy to ward off the risk of a deflationary crisis, Bitcoin, which promises us in the long run a money creation equal to zero, and the money debt model where it is the commercial banks that make the money supply vary through the mechanism of credit to companies. The new slogan that is emerging is the following: money creation is theft. Yet today, I would like to exchange with you around a different way in which we can approach these different money supply management models. I think you'll be surprised. First of all, we must always keep in mind that money is first and foremost something else than a social convention that helps us to agree to facilitate exchanges. So there is no right or wrong answer. It all depends on what you want to do. Let's start by understanding how the system works today. In practical terms, those who print money are the commercial banks. When you take out a loan of 100,000 euro, your banker creates 100,000 euro and gives it to you. However, as you pay it back, the banker destroys the money you give back. I'll skip over the interest on the loan as to not make it more complicated to understand. Just keep in mind that this interest-paid story is neutral from the point of view of the money supply. If you want to know more, go and see this video. Otherwise, take my word for it. This method of money creation works on two conditions. The first, it is imperative that banks do not commit to more than they are capable of losing. The creation of money through debt money implies a leverage effect on the sums borrowed and therefore on the quantity of money created. Fundamentally, this is not a bad thing, but if a bank lends more money than its own funds allow it to lose, we end up with catastrophes like 2008. So, in a money debt system, the regulation must be very tough in terms of the responsibility of the banks. Obviously, in the current world, this is not the case, and this is the main reason why the current system has failed. The second fundamental point is that you have to accept very hard recessions. Since the economy is going to operate at its maximum growth potential, and since the borrowing of money and debt is going to make it possible to unblock a maximum number of business projects, the economic system is going to experience lightning acceleration during periods of growth, but on the other hand, during periods of recession, the purges are much more severe. Such a system therefore requires great flexibility for companies in terms of hiring and firing, but also in terms of their ability to go bankrupt and create a new company. You are free to manage this flexibility like the USA or like the countries of Northern Europe, but you cannot allow yourself, like France, to jam the system with an omnipresent administration. In the end, a money debt system allows for strong growth phases with the counterpart of strong recessions, because in a recession period, the money supply can contract violently and many companies go bankrupt. As human beings are quite shy in the face of pain, we have not played the game. Everyone accepts growth phases, but in recession phases, our governments, driven by popular demand, have preferred to deregulate the economic system by preventing recessions from playing their role through public subsidies and interest rate manipulation. As for the banks, let's not talk about them, especially in Europe. They are a catastrophe. It is the model of privatization of profits and socialization of losses that has imposed itself. Obviously, it doesn't work in the long term. Finally, although theoretically it could work, we are not collectively capable of accepting a system that works on leverage. It would be reasonable to think of another system because, after all, money is only a human convention to exchange value. We can decide what we want. Friedman's computer. And if we adopt Milton Friedman's hypothesis, namely that we install a computer to create banknotes in the central bank, we fire all the officials of the central bank and we let this computer create 3% more money every year. The idea is simple. If we want stable prices, the money supply must be equal to the economic growth. At worst, we can adjust this percentage every 10 years to match the reality of growth. Then, each year, you are free to give this 3% either to the government, if you think it is an intelligent way to pay taxes so that the government remains at the center of political decisions, in which case you are rather left-wing, or you spend the money from this 3% directly into people's pockets because you think that the best economic planners are individuals, in which case you are rather right-wing, and this income could also constitute a kind of social minimum. In short, in this case, prices are more or less stable in the long run. I say more or less because you are completely subject to the variation of what is called the velocity of money, i.e., the speed of circulation of money in the economy. Economic crisis can also be tough because in a recession, if everyone stops spending their money, there is no more money in the streets and bankruptcies are common. At the same time, you may think that this is a good thing because it is the role of recessions to get those who are swimming without bathing suits off the beach at low tide. In a rigorous monetary system, all recessions are not fun to live through because you have to go bankrupt for real, if I may say so. But that's not all. A system of inflation of the money supply also implies a distribution of income. As I said, whether it is by the government or some kind of annual income to the population, this money creation acts as a tax. But a tax on whom? Well, on the saver. He who has saved bills under his mattress sees his capital depreciate, or at best remain stable according to the annual rules of money distribution. So it is the saver who suffers and the spender who benefits. But it's a model, and in itself, it could be the subject of a social project. In fact, if someone asked me how to introduce a basic income in an intelligent way, I would think of a solution of this type. Then we could imagine a deflationary model. This is my favorite, and it's quite fun. You'll see. You institute a perfectly divisible currency to infinity. You can make hundredths, thousandths, billionths, etc. as much as you want. You institute a fixed quantity of money, for example, 100 million units at the base, and then you don't touch anything. You do nothing. You don't do anything at all, and you let the system do its own thing with its 100 million things. What's happening? In an economy with no growth, there will be no price changes. In a system in recession, the quantity of goods and services will decrease, and you will end up with inflationary periods. And yes, since there are fewer and fewer things to buy, your money will be worth less because its overall purchasing power will decrease. Finally, in periods of growth, you will find yourself with a fall in prices, deflation. In other words, the more the purchasing power of your money will increase in proportion to the economic growth. In this case, in a growth phase, taking out a loan to develop your business becomes difficult because you know that deflation will reduce your turnover and that you will have to pay back an interest rate that is roughly equal to the economic growth. It kills a lot of the finance industry that is trying to make small gains on the margin like LBOs, which are taking on debt in order to buy out a company. Overall, it kills a lot of the opportunities to make money with money because credit is very expensive. Only solid business projects can survive. On the other hand, if an economy slows down, the deflation naturally increases and credit becomes cheaper, which helps businesses to move forward. So, we have a system that minimizes the impact of crisis and maximizes the difficulty of getting into debt during a growth phase. As far as savers are concerned, their money appreciates on its own during a growth phase and depreciates during a recession. In short, people's savings are naturally indexed to growth. I personally find this beautiful. There is no need for anyone. On the other hand, the major problem with this strategy is to move from the current, highly indebted world to a deflationary world. This implies a failure of the current system in one way or another. The funny thing is that I've had this thought in my head for a bunch of years, and I realized only a few months ago that this is precisely what Bitcoin is all about. Bitcoin has 21 million forward units that no central authority can do anything about. Bitcoin is like the big mainframe Milton Friedman talked about, except that it's deflationary, not inflationary, and it's decentralized. It's not anywhere but everywhere. Even more so, a few weeks ago I was talking to Didier Darcet, a researcher in finance, but also my partner in the writing of my investment letter and in the creation of Naystor, my platform for assisting free online management. And he was telling me that according to his calculations, the level of inflation to which the highest growth rate in history corresponds is statistically negative 1.5% over a century and a half in the USA. This is a very interesting figure because over the last century, this negative 1.5% corresponds to the increase in the productivity of the economy. In other words, it seems that the optimum for the functioning of a capitalist economy is a redistribution of productivity gains through the appreciation of money. I am not talking about the growth of the economy, which also includes the growth of the population. No, I am talking about productivity growth, which corresponds to the growth of the efficiency of the economy, the amount of means necessary to produce a unit of wealth. In other words, nature does it right. It's just amazing, really. So I wanted to share with you this reflection on the models of money creation because I think it is important to get away from a political reflection on this highly citizen subject, which should be a democratic choice. That's why when I see high-ranking members of central banks calling to kill Bitcoin in order to not endanger the euro, it makes my hair stand on end. If Bitcoin is such a bad idea, let it die quietly by the proof of its uselessness. I don't know if Bitcoin will work or not. The chances of failure are high, but if it's a good idea, then our rulers are just messing with us to preserve their turf against the interest of their people, and that drives me crazy. Hashtag, leave us alone, you've done enough already. On that note, I'll see you soon for new videos. Ciao.
Thank you so much for watching. If you like my videos, please subscribe and don't forget to hit the bell if you want to be notified of the next episode. And if you want to invest in the stock market over the long term or diversify your financial portfolio, I'm offering you an analysis of the 8 European star stocks to have. Thanks again for watching and have a great day.